You're listening to a DM podcast.
Welcome to Over the Back Fence. I'm Di Edwards.
I'm Nicola Dale, and we're buddies of nearly 4 decades. And yes, we actually do happen to share a back fence.
We do. We love parties, people, inspirational stories, and honestly, making the most out of life.
So join us as we open our hearts, share our stories, and hear from some of the most inspirational people in the world. And have a laugh along the way.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Hey, Dodie.
Hey.
So how's your week been, Dodie?
Happy Monday, Nicola.
You're looking well.
You look beautiful in orange. You make me happy. Orange is one of my favourite. Orange and pink. I've had a shit of a week.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I've just had, it's been a bit flat for the last 7 days. Feeling great today. Sometimes, we just do that. We just go, isn't it, what do we say? Life's like a roller coaster.
It is. But do you know what do you do?
Or a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to
get. There was a photo of you and you certainly didn't look flat. You looked amazing. You've got a white swimsuit on. You've been swimming. So swimming, is that a tool for you, Dodie, when you're feeling that way?
I often suggest to people, look, to be honest, not everybody can access the ocean. I understand that, but I think you can put some things into a bath. You know what I mean? Like some Epsom salts or whatever. Yeah. But for me, getting to the ocean is my healer. I just plunge into the ocean and, it's... I remember when one of my testing points of when my marriage broke up, I remember heading down to the ocean. I was a hysterical mess, actually, and I went into the ocean. And it was incredible to feel this incredible, it was like someone was watching over me, the waves were washing over me, with washing away my tears. And I remember going, wow, how powerful is the ocean, the salt water. It was just, I came out of, it's like I left that negative energy there and came out differently.
Oh, wow, Dodie.
So, yeah.
You know what? I've known you for so long, and thank you so much for sharing that because, it certainly has been a tough time. And, you're not alone. Our listeners, I certainly have been through some awful times in life, and you've got to acknowledge it because, you don't stay in there forever that way. But, you've shared that and it was a really flat time of your life. Mm-hmm. And, and just sort of for everyone there, it's sort of like we're real, we're authentic, and you're courageous just to say that, Di. And, so it's not always sort of like the happiness and you see the pictures on Instagram too.
I remember you sharing that with me when you were going through it with your marriage. And you were in a fetal position.
Yeah.
And because Nicola's like this love bug of joy and happiness. And I knew then, I just went, oh my God. Mm-hmm. And that's what really hits home is the different ways. Well, you don't choose to go through it. It's just where you go. Yeah. And I remember that image of you, and now that was the image of me in the water. It's quite interesting and profound moments because as Nicola and I says, only way is up. Baby.
Yeah.
And I think you have to live it, eat it and drink it in order to go back up.
Yeah.
Because you got to sit in it.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
feel
it. That's the real thing, I think, of overcoming things is you got to feel it and you sit in it. And it's that thing of how long do you sit in it? Well, how long's a piece of string? You don't always know.
No.
You can't always, get over as quickly as you want to.
No.
But having friends around you, that was a big
vital.
saving for me.
Yep.
Having, girlfriends, having family, having support. And sometimes, like it's one step forward, 2 steps back.
It's true.
And that's sort of how it is. So, Di, you've had a yucky week, and we hope this next week's going to be better.
It's going to be the best.
And and as I was saying, you're not alone there. But I'll tell you what, our next guest we've got is Dr. Daniel Nour, Young Australian of the Year 2022, and he deals with people who are down and out. My goodness, with
he's
homeless
remarkable.
and does so much to help other people. So I think you'll enjoy
Oh,
Daniel.
you'll love Daniel.
Yeah.
His energy. I mean, both Nicola and I described him as the Earth Angel. He's remarkable. Enjoy.
It's an absolute honour to have Dr. Daniel Nour, Young Australian of the Year 2022, founder of the Streetside Medics, which is a mobile medical service specially created for the homeless join us at our back
Over
fence.
the back fence.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm a big
Dad.
fan of your podcast. You guys have been doing amazing work.
Bless you.
So thank you.
When would
Pleasure.
you get time to listen
Yeah,
to a
when do you?
podcast? She's
I mean,
so
I
busy.
drive a lot to all the clinics and to work. So on the drives, it makes for great listening.
Oh,
isn't that
yeah.
great? I
It's
love
funny because we've
that.
got a farmer up the North Coast.
Yeah.
She's a flower farmer. And she says, I get in the car on Monday morning.
Yep.
And that's the start of my week. And I'm usually having a bit of a giggle or inspired. It makes you feel good,
Yeah,
all that.
agreed.
What makes me feel good is sitting here today in front of you. There's people like you on this earth, just like angels on earth. Tell us about the organisation you started, Streetside
Medics. So the funny thing is, 200 metres from where we are right now is where
Which is
Streetside
Woolloomooloo,
Medics started.
listeners.
Woolloomooloo, corner of Burke and Cathedral Street. I for many years was a volunteer with my church who provided food services at Woolloomooloo, and so I was familiar with homelessness, but I was studying medicine and never thought about the two together. And I was in London doing a medical elective, very passionate about cardiology, which is why I was there. And I had an interaction with someone experiencing homelessness on the streets of London. It was a gentleman who was having a seizure outside Waterloo train station. And he was having a seizure. I did my ABCs. I kept him as stable as I could. Paramedics took him away. And a conversation with his friends after that revealed to me that he'd been having seizures for quite a long period of time, often in an alleyway behind where not so many people had seen him. And because of fear or previous negative experiences or a sense that the healthcare system wouldn't take him seriously, he avoided seeking help and he was suffering in silence. And the lady that was telling me this was also experiencing homelessness, and she herself had health conditions that she suffered with and suffered in silence because she thought she wouldn't be able to get the help she needed, or that she wouldn't be taken seriously, or that the healthcare system didn't care about her. And as someone who had spent years studying to become a doctor with the pure intention of helping people, that slapped me in the face. And so I kept thinking about that, and I would go down to Woolloomooloo and I'd chat to people and ask them, when was the last time you saw a doctor? And some people would respond last week, and many would respond, I haven't seen one in years. And so looking into that and doing a lot of research, there's lots of data that shows that there are many barriers that limit access to healthcare for people experiencing homelessness. And they're pretty straightforward. Lack of transportation, cost associated, the level of ID required, the whole notion of you need to be at this place at this time between these hours for this duration. That just makes it all too hard. And for anyone experiencing homelessness, I could only imagine there are other priorities like where am I sleeping and my sense of security, and where am I getting food, and not why am I short of breath. And so creating
Wow, that's a great line,
Yeah.
that. Where am I getting fed? Rather, why am I short of breath? Love that.
Yeah. And so rather than expecting them to come to us, the idea was take the service to them and alleviate as many barriers as possible. So we don't need Medicare, we don't need ID, you don't even have to give us your name, give us a name, it doesn't have to be yours. And the van is equipped with all the right equipment and resources and consumables so that we can actually do a lot in that one interaction. And it's a 100% volunteer-run organisation, which proves that, and there is a vibe to it. It's the people that are there volunteering there, they're there because they want to be there. They're there because they believe in the cause and in helping people.
And what sort of people are we talking about? I mean,
Doctors, nurses,
and
allied health
nurses
professionals.
and volunteers.
How many
We've got
people,
executives,
Daniel?
we've got everyone.
Yeah.
So when we started, it was me and a friend, and it organically grew to sort of 5, 10, 20, 50, and now there's a wait list of about a year and a half to become a volunteer.
You're kidding me.
No, we've got about 600 in the registry, and we're actively using about 200 at the moment. And this is all over the country.
Are we talking medically inclined or volunteers, as in someone that's
Everything. Yeah,
across
yeah.
the board?
From
Yeah, across the board.
drivers?
Yeah, drivers to nurses.
How many
to-
vans do you have?
We've got 3. We're receiving the 4th in in a week or
that's
so.
so exciting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
expanding.
So what's in a van? Like, what's in it?
Yeah, so it's essentially cabinetry, but you've got two stations, station at the front, station at the back. Station at the front's a medical support officer station, junior doctor, or any doctor really, and a nurse. They do vitals, blood pressure, put them in the system, brief history, vaccine if they need it, and then send them to the back and they see the GP. And then equipment-wise in the van, there's, talking medical terms, otoscope, ophthalmoscope, dermatoscope, which is like ear, eyes.
So you got scopes.
We got lots of scopes. We got like
Yes,
ECG, spirometry. We've got a little pathology machine so we can
Really?
get blood test results from within the van.
Fabulous.
That's
Got a small pharmacy, like
fantastic.
every dressing you could imagine, as much as possible so that we can actually...
on the spot.
And that's one of the frustrating things, is that a lot of the times there are people that would go out to people experiencing homelessness, take their blood pressure and say, you've got high blood pressure, come to the clinic. or you've got diabetes, come to the clinic. And they wouldn't. And so the whole idea was, if you come to me and I can do a finger prick for these patients, and in one of our machines get what's called a HbA1c, which is your blood sugar over 3 months' time, the gold standard for diabetes. Within 5 minutes, I can tell you have diabetes definitively.
Yes, that.
And then my
That's
GP,
really important,
which is
isn't it?
essential.
Yeah,
and then we can
very.
do a care plan then and there, which gives them access to a number of other allied health services. And then we give them some diabetes medication. And so they've come into the van, we've recognised that there's an issue, but we've given them a solution and a way to move forward.
Oh, Daniel,
And can I ask about, okay, so we're talking about dealing with ailments. What about mental health, for example? Do you approach that, or
Yeah.
do you refer others on, or how do you deal with something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so challenging. So mental health is obviously broad, and we
Yes.
see a lot of loneliness. We see a lot of people that just want to have a chat. And so that's, we do a lot of
I was
that.
thinking
can't
that.
imagine how hard it would be being homeless, and then they go it's sort of like that. It can be a slippery slope from having a normal life, and next minute, bang, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's,
And we've seen doctors, lawyers, executives, CEOs experiencing homelessness with amazing stories with, there's one patient I'll never forget in Manly. Unfortunately, he's passed away. But he started experiencing homelessness after his wife passed. And it was him and his wife, and they were best friends. And he just couldn't cope with the fact that he lost his life's partner. And this man was extremely successful, had a reasonable social network and everything going for him. His wife died of terminal cancer and his life derailed. And then he started drinking, and then he lost his rental accommodation.
So how do you go about helping someone like that
So
from a
it's just
mental
being there.
perspective?
Just being there.
Okay, so it's being there listening.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot
Do you
of...
refer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
But the system is a challenge. I mean, we're healthcare practitioners. We've got
You can
support
do so
from community
much.
and
only
tertiary.
do so much. Yeah.
We struggle to get anyone a psychiatry appointment. We struggle. We sometimes have to beg and plead, and a lot of the times we have to pay for it. We have to pay full fee to get someone to see a private psychiatrist, because it's otherwise impossible to get them in. And it's a countrywide problem. Access to mental health services is, it's too difficult.
And tell me, how
tackle.
many lives have you touched already through? Do you know, sort of like ballpark?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I got a text message a few days ago from one of my team leaders who got a message from a doctor, emergency department consultant at one of the big hospitals here. And she goes, I was working at hospital in the ED, and I saw a patient's name on the waiting list. He'd been waiting for 7 hours. And I recognized that name as one of the patients that come to our clinic in Waterloo. And I know that he suffers from severe anxiety and is always so concerned. And so I quickly went out to speak to him, and within 15, 20 minutes, I reassured him that everything was okay, to try and save him for waiting for another 7 hours to simply go back to the exact same situation. Now, we can't measure that impact. That's not on any data points.
Yeah, that's so true.
But
isn't it?
that level of impact is massive. And so, yes, we see in excess of sort of 15 to 20 patients per clinic every single day. We've got, roughly 8-9 clinics a week. So if you do the maths, it's over 100 people a week that we interact with. But then you've got general volunteers outside talking to people, reassuring them, making
So
them
it's
feel good.
That's
hundreds
lovely.
and hundreds, isn't it?
Lovely.
And we've been operating for years. So
Do you what's the time slots? Like, is it in the evening?
It's
or?
always afternoon because it's
That's-
volunteer run.
And is
so
it sometimes where, you drive up to, Daniel, is where people are getting free meals too?
it's always that.
Yes,
it's
It's
always
that.
that.
very
Yes, so
smart.
that's a smart
so it's
thing, isn't it?
all coordinated in one area. That's
Wow.
brilliant. God, you're incredible.
You really,
Yes.
and I tell you what,
You
talk
are
about
incredible.
well-deserved Young Australian.
Yes.
Quick question:
Yeah.
How did it feel when they announced you were the winner?
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, it felt surreal. So they kept pushing me to write a speech, but I always thought that the person that won would know. So I'm like, I know I didn't win. This is the biggest honor ever. And, there were a bunch of amazing people there. And so I was hesitant to even write a speech because I'm not wasting my time writing a speech. It's tokenistic. But it felt good. I felt a sense of pressure and responsibility. And it was probably personally the wrong time. I mean, I was sitting my exams at work. Work was busy. I was in a new relationship, and there's never the right time.
Always.
No,
That's
true.
that's
And to
life.
have
that's what I've
that
realised.
creates a
When it
huge
rains, it
pressure.
pours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
And-
it had an unmeasurable positive impact on Streetside. It helped Streetside more than
It
I
put
could
it
ever
out
explain.
there.
Oh, without a doubt.
That's great, isn't it?
It gave it a
That's
national
true.
platform.
Yeah.
Oh, see, isn't that beautiful? Typical of Daniel to diffuse that. Now, Nicola and I were just having a bit of a giggle driving in, carpool karaoke,
Yes.
about when you became Australian of the Year last year, you was at an invitation to go to the coronation.
Tell us
How
about
bizarre.
it.
Sitting next to.
Lionel Richie. I know.
What do we
Hello,
see?
hello, is it me you're looking for? Were you singing that to him?
I was. Yeah, no, I wasn't. Thank God. That's probably why he still respects
How
me.
did you sit there where you had to be quite serious at the
Yeah.
And
coronation?
Julie Bishop the other side, wasn't it?
That's right.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
But you know what I liked about, you know how they say don't meet your heroes? He was not that. He was the loveliest, the most humble. We spoke about everything from children, family, religion, politics. I felt like I was chatting with someone I knew. I'm going to America in a few days, and I'm catching up with him on the
excuse me,
5th.
another
Yeah.
award would it be?
Yeah, that's bizarre. I know.
And what's the award?
Tell us about that.
I thought it was a prank. I literally did. I thought it was a hoax.
Really?
I got an email saying Muhammad Ali Family Foundation and there's an award, and I said, leave me alone. And I didn't respond until they sent me a LinkedIn message. And
Talk about humble.
Oh,
it's a-
and so
it's-
tell us
get rid
about
of
that
them.
award then.
That's
Daniel.
so funny.
yeah, so the Muhammad Ali Foundation have set up some core qualities, I guess, of Muhammad Ali. So spirituality, compassion, etc. So there's 3 or 4 awards that they give every single year. I'd never even heard of this. Like, honest to God,
I'd
On
never
a
heard of
global,
it.
Yeah,
stage
absolutely.
here, so
And
this
that's
What a
is
the
great,
interesting thing.
what a great for the family to back
Yeah.
this up
Well,
with
and-
something
and-
he believed in.
What I've been told is that it was his wife. It was his wife Lonnie who somehow learnt of the work of Street Side Medics. I have no idea how. And I'm actually
See,
guessing.
maybe Australian of the Year too.
I think it's got to do with the coronation and Lionel Richie. Like, surely there was some American paper.
All
or-
the tentacles.
No, I
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah, I have no idea how.
Wow.
When things go out to on a global scale, but
Yeah.
what an
These
honour
days,
and
yeah.
congratulations
It's
on
exciting.
that too. Well, we
Wow.
can't wait to follow that. And,
Yeah, yeah. I'll
Seriously?
send
How
you
long are you in the
photos.
States for?
Only a few days.
A few days,
Only a few
okay,
days.
yeah.
Kentucky for a day or two, and then LA.
Are you
for a
flying
couple
out
of
with
days.
your new beautiful wife?
I am. I am.
great.
Yeah,
How
exciting.
beautiful.
It'll be a good trip.
Yeah.
So you've
Oh,
been married
fantastic.
in 2 minutes, I
Yeah,
gather.
literally nothing.
Nicola's
Got to
at the
say,
wedding.
yeah,
Yes.
Richard and I were honoured to be part of
Yeah.
your wedding, and
It was
it was
exciting.
beautiful. It was
It was.
absolutely beautiful. And also to top it off, that here we are here they're having a honeymoon,
Yes.
and Richard and I are on a boat in the south of France,
And
we
you run into each
I
other.
know.
we
That
ran
was
into each
bizarre.
other
That was
in
bizarre,
Cannes.
but it was the
Seriously.
best. Yeah, we're
Wasn't
having
it
Bloody Marys
fantastic?
at 10 a.m.
Bloody Marys at
in,
10
in
a.m.
south of France. It was gorgeous. It was the highlight of my
Wasn't
trip.
it? It was the highlight
really
of
was.
our. It was the highlight
God,
of our
isn't he
trip.
beautiful?
No, it's
I know,
good.
it really
So,
was
so
great.
speaking of travelling and all those wonderful, yummy things,
Hmm.
how do you find balance when you're a doctor by trade?
Yeah.
You know, you've got this unbelievable organisation called Street Side Medics going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
You've got this beautiful wife, and how do you find a balance in your life?
Yeah. So a couple of things. With Street Side Medics, it's sort of taken a life of its own. And there are amazing
Love
people
that.
that run Street Side Medics, and I just kind of try and help where I can. And so I can't take too much credit for that.
Oh,
But-
just
No.
founded it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the truth is that I've accepted that there is no such a thing as balance, and that you'll never get the balance perfectly right. I think it's a struggle,
Oh,
and
I
anyone
love
tells you
this.
I've worked it out is full of crap.
Yeah.
Oh, Jan, that's
Yeah.
really refreshing to hear that,
So,
isn't it?
So I appreciate that. But as a
Yeah.
doctor, if you're seeing someone stressed and they're sick, what would you say to them?
Or alleviate some of that stress.
Yeah.
Let go of
Find
some
a
things.
balance.
And I've had to
Yeah.
do that. There's a lot
Yeah.
of things that I say no to. And I
Yes.
could never say no before. I really struggled with that.
I get
I'm,
that.
I'm an opportunity-driven person. And so if you give me an opportunity, I say, well, how can I give that up? But I can't do everything.
No.
And you do have to take care of yourself. And you have to take care of the people around you. And I have to be a good husband and a good son and a good brother. And I think that I've certainly set my priority list. So, when I'm at work, work is number one priority. When I'm at street side is number one priority. When I'm at home, Cass won't agree with this, but I try and make her the number one priority.
So you
She's
can
beautiful.
basically leave Street Side Medics, get in the car and can switch off?
No,
Right.
I can't.
Yeah,
but,
me
but you
either,
can
yeah.
try. But
Yeah.
Try,
And,
yes.
and sometimes it's also good not to switch off, as in, I like thinking.
Yeah, because you're breaking it, diluting
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
Do you walk? Do you go to the gym? Do you play tennis? Do you swim?
I'd like
Do
to say
you-
all of the above, but it's none of the above. I mean,
Oh,
I've,
I love your
yes,
honesty.
yeah,
Yeah, I wake
Some
up
people
every
say,
day.
"Oh yeah."
Yeah.
No, I wake up every day and I say I want to go to the gym, and I do, but I don't.
Yeah.
That's so good. I
Well,
wake
you-
every day and say, because most people say, "I go to the
But
gym."
I think you
I want to.
You must run around so much with your
I mean, I'll
job
walk with
anyhow. I mean,
work
look at
and,
him.
yeah.
No, but that's
Di
just
was-
so funny.
I know.
I
Well,
wake
Di
up
was
every day-
asking whether Daniel modelled, which which I think we found again-
Daniel's very good looking.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's gorgeous.
Exactly.
Like
The
seriously,
handsome
I love
doctor.
Nicola and I. We do seriously interview like a chat. It's
Yeah,
not like
which is good.
seriously-
I love it.
No, that's
how it
us.
is.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that-
why it's
yeah.
good.
I just wanted to quickly, because I've just been watching the Mission Australia feed on Instagram talking about homelessness. And now, I think I read, tell me if I'm wrong, I thought I read it wrong, that 300 people every hour reach out from homelessness in Australia to Mission Australia. Would that be right? 3,000, sorry. 3,000 people every hour reach out to Mission Australia for homelessness.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Like,
So I think...
I find that so hard to believe.
Yeah, I think what
How naive am I?
yeah, and that's the thing. What people don't realise...
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
3,000
it's-
every hour reach out
And
in
that's
Australia.
And if you're saying
For
that
homelessness.
could be
It's
right.
It's
Yeah.
not surprising. Yeah,
Not
across the
surprising.
country. I mean, there are... The 2016 was the last big consensus, and there was 116,000 people experiencing homelessness then. But then in 2020, there were 280,000 people accessing homelessness services, which suggests the problem's more than double what you think.
Right.
And I'll be completely candid and honest with you. You know, I'm a doctor. My wife's a speech pathologist, and we've got a mortgage, and you know, we have good jobs. We don't go out. We're not spending a lot of money, and yet with interest rates going up and the cost of living, we feel pressure. And you know, we're doing reasonably well. And then you've got the average Joe Blow who might not have the same level of comfort and support. I know I've got my parents down the road who can help, and my brother. And so there are simply people in this day and age, in this current society, that are doing it so tough, that are losing their rentals and living with their kids in their house. And there are people that are going couch surfing. There are people that don't. There's a lady, one of the most beautiful volunteers that we had very early in Streetside Medics was a single mother who got divorced and was working full time as a social worker, but couldn't make ends meet, paying for her children's clothes, paying for school fees, and she was homeless for a long period of time. There are people that actually rock up to work. There's one lady in particular who is now extremely senior in the nursing sphere, but she was going to work whilst living in her car, and no one knew that. Homelessness is so much more prevalent than we think. It is the endemic of our generation.
It's extremely complex. Like my brain goes, is it time, like as in more volunteers, or is it money, or
Yeah.
is it legislation, is it changing of government law? Like where do you start? I mean,
Yeah.
God, you're the one to ask, Daniel.
Yeah. I think you can start in so many different places, and I think there are so many models. Like for example, the housing first model. You know, get them a house, and
Yes.
and that will fix some people's problems. But
Yeah.
a lot of the time, they don't need a house; they need a home. And how do you give someone a home? You know, you can't. It's that sense of community. It's that social interaction. It's that alleviating the loneliness. If you get someone with severe mental health or substance abuse and you give them a house, then you're likely only going to make those issues worse. And so there are lots of different ways to go about it. One of our ways, which isn't the way, but is medical. It's if you're feeling physically healthy and as best as possible mentally healthy, you're most likely to be able to put the best foot forward to change your life. And so people get upset when I say this, but I've had big figures in society reach out to me and say, I want to start a food service, or I want to support in this way. And a lot of that is tokenistic. It's we want to
Yes.
help for us, for me.
Of course.
I give a meal because it makes me feel good.
Yes.
But is that really helping the person I'm giving the meal to?
Yeah.
Probably not. And so I think what we need to do when
Yeah.
we're looking at helping people experiencing homelessness is not just Band-Aid solutions, but actually get to the core of the problem.
Which
and say,
is how,
which is so many things. It's
Yeah.
complex. It's challenging. You know,
core
it is.
Where do you start?
Where do you start? But I think you start with trying to identify the reasons people experience homelessness and target those.
Okay.
So there's
Right.
physical
Yes.
health, there's mental health, there's substance
That
abuse.
come from that.
There's so many different things.
derivatives,
And
yeah.
you rather than look at the end point of this person needs food and housing, you look at it from the start and say, how can I fix those? How can we have better access to psychiatry, to mental health problems? How can we have more equality to healthcare, equality to job opportunities? How can we be more culturally and linguistically diverse so that people of cultural backgrounds don't find it difficult to fit into society and get a job and maintain a job and have friendships?
Yeah.
And I think they're the main things that we need to target, rather than what we do now, which is just end product, how do we make them feel more comfortable?
So interestingly, you said there's Band-Aid solutions rather than getting to the core.
Which I suppose, you need a
Yeah.
Band-Aid to start, but to like really solve it and to get there is to get to sort of like
So
the root issue,
complex.
the best that you can.
That's it.
And I tell you what, boy, you're making a difference though, Daniel.
Hugely.
It really is. And,
Hugely.
And we've always sort of
Yeah.
said when we've chatted to different people with loneliness too, it just takes that one person, just a friend,
Yeah.
to talk. And
Yeah.
so even with your service, even if it's one of the volunteers who hasn't even given them a medical treatment,
Yeah.
but just that looking in the eye, having sort of someone who does care.
Yeah.
And I think that can sort of boost a mood. But do you have any tips for, say, even sort of some of our listeners who may or may not be homeless, but just sort of things to help in sort of like life and sort of putting the best foot forward in day-to-day living?
Yeah, I think it's to your point earlier. It's trying to find a balance.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that is important.
The one that Daniel doesn't have.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry,
No,
I
you're right.
really like your honesty to go.
Yeah.
No.
It's really hard, and
It
in
was
life,
beautiful.
the balance is sometimes you've got to balance,
Refreshing.
and the scales go that way.
That's
doesn't
it.
Di? And the scales go that way.
And I think the pressure of trying to be at balance is a stress in its own. And I think you've got to
That's a
accept
good
that,
point.
at times, like
I agree with that.
Yes, yes.
if I'm doing okay,
I've got to go to the gym.
Yeah, exactly, I have
Should
to do
be
it.
Going.
Well,
Be kind to yourself.
exactly, you
sometimes.
have to be, and you have to give
Yes.
yourself a bit of leeway. So
Yes.
I think if you're doing okay academically, professionally, in your relationships, or you're not going to the gym, that's all right. Or if you're going to the gym, and it is a balance, and you have to try and find it. So I think, two things. My tip to users that aren't experiencing homelessness, that want to
Yes.
know how can I help someone experiencing
Yes.
homelessness, it's recognize they're human, and that sounds sort of bizarre, but a lot of the times you'll have people on the side of the street that will have a sign or ask you for $1 or whatever. And I was definitely someone that did this also in younger days, and I would just walk right by. I wouldn't even recognize them. I wouldn't respond. And when you think about it, that's another human being sitting down telling you, can I get some help? And even if you can't help them, the least you can do is stop, respond, and say, I'm sorry, I don't have cash, or I don't give out money.
A little bit of respect.
It's just that level of
Yes.
respect in
Yeah.
recognizing
How are you?
that's a
Yeah.
fellow human being,
that's
and getting
beautiful.
down to their level. A lot of the times, we stand up and talk to them, and I think sitting down next to them, and these are tips that I got from people experiencing homelessness.
Oh, well, that's hearing the horse's
Yeah.
mouth. So,
Yeah.
the other thing is I find, everyone's walking around these silly streets with earplugs on.
Yeah,
And it annoys the hell out of me.
yeah, I do the
You
same.
know,
I'm
But
it's like-
sorry.
but they are
The
listening
homeless
to
feel like,
podcasts, though,
"What?
Di. Come on.
Oh, well, that's a whole different ball game.
Yes.
But, to reach out and say hi or a busker or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
What? You got to take them out and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
so
yeah.
disconnected, I find. That's just
Yeah,
me.
society has become
Yeah.
quite disconnected.
And the other thing is I get a bit woo-woo, sorry, Daniel, but Nicola goes, oh, my God, here she goes. But touch.
Yeah.
The art of touch and the power in touching someone.
Yeah.
Because I'm very tactile.
Yeah.
I haven't attacked you yet, Daniel.
Yes,
I'll give you a
yes.
hug at the
I
end.
shouldn't say he's very handsome, though, so watch out. How's I'm looking over?
But I do touch. I'm a very tactile
Yeah.
person. That's why
Yes.
COVID killed me.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll sort of massage someone on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And sometimes people I feel go,
Yeah.
like they haven't been touched for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you find I don't know, if
Holding
how are you
someone's
coming
hand
through
or
or
something?
help
Yeah,
them with
yeah.
their arm and how the power of touch.
Yeah. Look, I'm Middle Eastern. I'm Egyptian background. We're very touchy-feely sort of people.
Love it.
And, we talk too close. And that's something Cass taught me that. She said,
Great.
you always talk too close to people. And so but I think you're right.
She's a speech pathologist, so
Just-
she
Exactly.
knows.
She knows. Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
I think you're right. I think just that sort of soft, warm touch, a tap on the shoulder, or it can make a big difference. And I think a lot of people are lacking that. I know when I come home and Cass gives me a hug, then that all of a sudden the weight of your world is off your shoulders.
It's a simple thing, isn't
it
it?
is a simple thing.
It
yeah.
is.
And
It doesn't
sometimes
take
now
much.
in this world too, you've got to be careful with touch. Like sort of someone
That's
touching
exactly it.
someone
And-
too. Especially in the medical profession.
Well, particularly on the bottom.
like
the
the
golf
little,
club.
Yeah, don't
the
do that.
bottom. I was touched on the bottom of the
Professionally
golf
don't.
club
A
the other
professional
touch,
week,
wasn't I, Jodie?
Yes, she was. We were at the golf
by,
club, and this guy grabbed her on the
Yes.
bum
Oh, you're
cheek.
kidding.
No.
And I was like,
And someone else just came up and said,
I
you can't
s-
afford that. And I
Yeah, I
didn't
thought that
say
was a
anything
great
more,
one.
But it was
Oh,
a bit like,
God.
so
It was a
there are some things.
it was a good comeback.
That's terrible.
But when we're talking
Yeah.
touch,
But touch,
we're
just the
talking
touch.
A touch on the
caring,
shoulder. Or,
Yes,
yeah.
kind, empathetic. How are you?
Yeah.
Touch.
Yeah.
And just the power of friendship too. Do you find that is such a great thing for mental health as well, and
Yeah.
well-being, having friends, or
I think, especially from a professional perspective, we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And I think when people are
Yes.
showing you vulnerability, you have to give the same level of respect back. I've had, in the last few weeks, not street side, but purely at work, people who are struggling with their parents passing away. You know, they're at hospital acutely, they're suffering. And a lot of the times I try and be vulnerable myself. And so I talk about my family, I talk about my dad and what I would do in that situation.
Beautiful.
And I try and get down to their level. So it's not, you know, it's a hierarchical conversation of I'm a doctor, you're a patient, I'm telling you what to do. No, we're the same. We're humans. I'm a son as much as I am, you know, a brother, and you're a son looking after your dad. And I remember that particular interaction. It was a guy that was struggling to allow his dad to be palliated. And he absolutely needed to be. He was dying, and he needed to accept that. And the only way to have him accept that was literally to sit next to him and talk about his dad and what they're up to, and sit him and go through all the results and explain everything and tell him, mate, if he was my dad, I'm looking at this as in I'm you and that's my dad.
It's beautiful.
This is what I would do in this situation.
It's pure empathy.
Pure
Yeah.
empathy. Well, you know
It's
what?
a gift.
We're going to, we've got a couple of our signature questions for you, Daniel. So do you want to shoot
he probably knows what they are. God help. I think, there's so much. I could talk to you forever.
I
Can
know,
ask
I
one
know.
quick one?
Yeah.
Me
What's
too.
ahead for you? Just quickly, what's ahead for Daniel?
Oh,
Just quickly. 'cause
yeah,
we
and
are
it's
time
hard
poor.
to know.
I just
apart from the USA,
only because
in a couple of
you're
days.
so dynamic and
Yeah.
you're just a beautiful human.
Thank you.
He's doing so much for
Oh.
our community
Thank
you.
over the back fence.
Yeah.
What would you like to see ahead for you? Like,
So I'm still very passionate about street side, and a lot of arms are street side. So street side's going to take an educational arm, an employment arm, a research arm. So we've already done a number of research to better understand the space, better understand healthcare parameters around it, etc. Education. I'm in the process of writing a curriculum for medical school and nursing schools. We never learnt about homelessness in medical school, and it's important that we do. But not just that. I mean, down the road is Skeggs Darlinghurst, the principal of whom is on my board. And I know that those children might not necessarily appreciate that 200 metres down the road there's people experiencing homelessness. I know they do because the school puts in so much effort. But the point being that I want children who are our future leaders to understand social disadvantage and homelessness and have an appreciation and empathy towards that. And I think that will change the world. If we have young children recognizing
You're
my
bringing
you just
tears-
filled my
Yeah.
cup
You're
today.
bringing tears to my eyes. I mean, seriously,
Education,
that is so true.
education,
Absolutely.
education.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's the grassroots where it starts from.
Yeah.
So I had to.
Oh no! And
This
thank you.
dynamic,
That's
beautiful, heartfelt human in front of me. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much more to come because you're so young.
Yes.
Are you going to tell us your age?
28.
Oh,
I, how's that?
if you can
Yeah, yeah.
achieve that at 28,
I know.
come on, guys. If anyone's
More to do.
listening, 28.
That is, and what are we going to see when he's 38, 48,
Unbelievable.
58,
Seriously.
68? Wow. That's
so,
just
first question,
First question is, Daniel, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
which was a minute ago.
I
Yeah.
know. It's not that long ago.
Not that long
Exactly.
ago. Do you want to know the honest answer? And I
Please.
doubt you've got it on this show. I would get my 20-year-old self to give me advice rather than the other way around.
Let me sit with that one for a minute.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. 20-year-old
Yes,
me
please.
was arrogant in the right way, was naive to the bureaucracy and red tape of the world, was an absolute blue thinker that thought, you know, anything in the world was imaginable and motivated, disciplined. And I think, you know, as we go in age, we unfortunately, you know, we get punched so many times by so many different things, and we get tired and we get worn out, and we recognize that it's not that simple and it's not that easy, and I think that makes you look in a box. And I think in life we just get tunneled down, and we recognize, you know, 20, 30 years down the track, shit, how did I end up in this situation? And so 20-year-old me was the opposite. It was the person that actively sought discomfort, that said, I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want to be in a situation that was where I was comfortable, and would always try and grow. And so I constantly remind myself of that person.
I so get everything you just said there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really.
That-
he goes against the grain. I love
I know.
that. It's with his truth and honesty.
Yeah, that is brilliant.
Time poor, Nicola and Di. Always the case.
Yes.
Last one.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to be Muhammad Ali in spirit.
Yeah.
Or Lionel Richie.
I reckon
It's
it
killing
could
me.
be.
Yeah.
If you had a
I think
chance
a
of meeting
song-
anyone in the world over the back fence.
Meeting anyone in the
Yep.
world. Oh, that's a
Anybody
great
in the
question.
world. Firstly, who would that be and why?
Yeah.
It could be us, couldn't it? The back fence.
We're on the branch
Yeah,
listening.
exactly, yeah.
To keep
One
Lionel's
side,
there,
exactly.
I'll sing a song with him.
I think it's probably Kobe Bryant.
Wow. It
yes.
breaks my heart.
Yeah, same.
Yes,
But I think,
yeah.
I mean, I always grew up listening to him, and I respect him so much because he was the sort of person that, you know, there's so many stories about him, but one of them was he'd go into the basketball court and someone would be there practicing their hoops. So he'd be there practicing their hoops. Someone would come and start practicing at the same time, and he would continue until they were done and would keep going for another hour, purely to send them a message of, I'll always work harder than you. And he was the epitome of discipline, the epitome of sort of pushing himself to be the greatest he can be. And I see that as a responsibility. We have a responsibility to be the best we can be to our world.
Daniel.
And so I think that, you know, what we colloquial term as the Mamba mentality, I'd like to get some of that from him and just understand how he, you know, at least from the outside, he was an amazing father, he was an amazing husband, and yet still, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, basketball players.
In the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
God, I'd love to meet your parents, Daniel.
Yeah, they're
Well,
cool.
I've
They're
met
good
They did
people.
a
I've
bloody
met your
great job
parents,
with you. I mean,
yeah.
you're doing a great job with
Thank
you.
you.
And I
But
could-
they must be
And hardworking
for you.
too.
They
They're
are.
very
If you told me
hardworking.
who would you want to share a backyard with,
Yeah.
it would be my parents.
Oh,
They're the best
Oh,
people
that's
in the world.
beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
absolutely
Wow.
beautiful.
Wow.
Daniel, thank you
Yeah.
so much
It's a
for
pleasure.
coming on. And I
Pleasure.
tell you what, you certainly deserve all those awards.
I'm going to
I mean,
go on the
what a-
lineup
But
for
what
the
a represent,
volunteers.
you know,
You should,
like
yeah, you
you,
should.
yeah. And but to represent Australia, aren't we lucky to have someone like that? And you're 28.
Yeah, thank God.
So,
Hope there's a ripple
hallelujah
effect
for you.
from this
There
to
really
someone.
is. Yeah,
It only takes one, doesn't
takes
it?
one
That's it.
person.
Yep, in a
But
community
everyone, look,
stand
so
up.
thank you, Daniel, and thank you for listening. And we'll be in your
Yeah.
ears next Monday.
We sure
And
will
so
be.
don't forget to rate and
He's
review
been
and
knocking earplugs and earphones. You can put those back on
put
when
them
you
back in
listen to
now.
it.
But hey, Dodie,
yeah.
how many stars do we want? If you're going to rate
Oh,
and
look,
review,
you know what? Daniel's inspired me. Head for the stars, aim high. Maximum 5, I'd go 500.
Okay, so I reckon I'm going to go 5,000.
You know, I'd go
I'm
against the
jumping in,
grain.
Exactly.
Everyone does 5. No!
Yeah,
How
well,
do you
this,
know?
I'll tell you what, this potty is 5,000. It's Reach for the Stars. And thank you for listening. We'll be in your ears
Beautiful.
next Monday. Ciao,
Ciao.
ciao. Bye.
Thank you.